So curveball, I ring the bell, and okay, there's a moment of jubilation, and it's like, woo, chemo radiation is done. And then you go home, and that's when fear crept in for me. God has created you wonderfully and beautifully made. This too shall pass. This too shall pass.
Welcome to Our Power Lounge, where we invite you to come as you are and leave more powerful. I'm your host, Tatianna Mott, and this is what power sounds like.
This is our power.
Today's guest is the kind of woman who, rather than spills tea, she serves it with purpose. Dr. Jacque Colbert is a trailblazing corporate leader, a veteran, a certified executive coach, and a breast cancer survivor who turned one of the hardest chapters of her life into a movement rooted in joy, sisterhood, and healing. She went from being a college dropout to earning her doctorate in organizational leadership and management. Through her platform, Sipping PositiviTEA, she's creating spaces for women to gather, reflect, and reclaim their power with love, intention, and yes, a little tea. Recently recognized by the Greater Houston Women's Chamber of Commerce as a 2025 STEAM role model, we are so honored to sit with Dr. Jacque today to hear how she turned a diagnosis into destiny.
Thank you so much for having me. When I hear the introduction, it makes me go, who is that woman?
That's you.
It is me, and gratitude is so important to me. So truly, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, and thank you for being here. And so before we get into it, because you have such a full life, you are a woman of many, many hats. So before we get into all of them, I kind of want to do a little warm up to introduce people to who you are before they actually know who you are. So I'm going to say a few words and then just let me know the first thought that comes to mind. So it could be a phrase, it could be a word, whatever comes to mind. So the first word is sisterhood.
That symbiotic, connective relationship that you share with women who you have sometimes a lot in common with, and sometimes it extends to where you don't have something in common just yet, but you extend yourself as a woman to be a good sister.
I love it. Come on now. And the second word is leadership.
Leadership, it means modeling one's behavior and ensuring that your say-do ratio matches. I often say that in leadership, if you turn around or you think about what is happening in the course of any given day and no one is following what you are espousing, then you're not a leader. People have to follow, and leaders inspire a shared vision. So that's what I believe about leadership.
The say-do ratio, I'm definitely gonna borrow that one. And the last word is power.
Power varies on the spectrum. Power could be honed in quiet ways. Power can be honed in loud ways, but I think power comes with responsibility, and power requires one's the opportunity to act in a way that is responsible.
The girl nerd in me automatically goes to, with great power comes great responsibility. If you know what that's from.
Yes, I think it's really true. It really is true, because I think that oftentimes people use power in a way that is inconsistent with those God-given abilities that they have, when the truth of it is that power should propel you and inspire you to effectuate change.
We mentioned leadership, and I really loved your answer to that. And I feel like even outside of the corporate world, like you feel just kind of like a natural leader. So I know that you are the oldest of 8 kids. And I'm also from New York, so.
The oldest girl of
the oldest,
8.
Yes, and of course the oldest girl also has, there's that societal built-in, expectation. But as someone who's also from New York, and I know that you were in, was it a 2-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn?
We were in a 2-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn, New York.
That's a lot of people. That is a lot of people.
We were stacking it, but we made do.
I love it. So in that environment and with that many people, when did you first realize, I'm kind of a leader here, I have to be strong? Did you ever feel that way?
I think I have to go back beyond Brooklyn in honoring the fact that I'm an immigrant to the United States. I'm Guyanese born, and then my parents came first, and then we came to Brooklyn. And growing up, I watched my mom, not to be cliche, making $1 out of 15 cents, just managing the home. Even though it was tiny, she made it big, but she made it big in the way in which she was able to keep a clean home. We were always fed. We were poor, but never in my mind did I really know at that time, nor had the cognition to think that we were poor. I didn't think that I was a leader because I'm not sure of the gray matter in my headspace really grounded itself in understanding. In hindsight, as I look back, I now see where I was leading, but that's the learned behavior from the formative years of being around my mom and seeing that there was much to be done and someone had to do it. And so I think that in leadership, you either sit around and see stuff needs to be done and just let it pass by, or you say, you know what? I think I can do that, whether or not you have the capabilities, and you just jump in and you start doing.
Do you feel that some of that leadership style is something that you still carry with you today, or any of those lessons from your childhood? How do they show up now?
100%. I always tell people that you should never delete your resume, because key experiences that I've picked up from childhood to the Army, when I started off as a medic, and I'm still soldier medic, send me, sir. I use as recently as today and yesterday in different boardrooms to help set the stage of leadership strategy. And so I think when you're growing in leadership, it's a cumulative effect of what is learned from an early age that is added on from additional experiences, as well as pedagogic from an educational perspective, and even being in sisterhood or watching others. I have to always humble myself in saying that I learned from watching other people. I learned from my daughter, who's a young recruiter and early in her career. I learned from my partner. I learned from my siblings. I learned from people who I see doing it poorly, where I can say to myself, don't do that, do that. So yes, to be more specific in answering your question, my childhood, the Army, the days spent in learning how to build call centers from scratch, and then later pivoting over to be an HR leader, has definitely taught me how to continue to refine and hone my skill sets. But those formative years were very, very instrumental in bringing me to where I am today.
Wow, that already is a whole journey in itself. And one thing that I have learned too in leadership or just in life is that sometimes the journey may not look the way you thought. It's not going to go as planned. And even before getting such a major diagnosis as breast cancer, your life had already taken a lot of twists and turns. And if I'm not mistaken, I know, you had a scholarship to NYU?
I did. And
but then what happened with that?
I'm a college dropout. I didn't stay at all. My dropout was not due to a lack of having the acumen or the ability to do it. At the time, I just didn't think that college was for me. I was going to school, but I was also working, something that I don't talk about often. In New York City, I was in cooperative education, where you go to school one week and work the other week in high school. And at that point in time, I was working at One Wall Street. I worked on Wall Street for a couple of years. So I was doing both of those things. And the Army came out of nowhere for me, and the rest became history. And it was the best decision that I ever made for my career.
Wow. And so feeling like college isn't for you, but then what was it about the Army that you felt was more for you?
At the time, they had me at, if you want to go to college later on, we will pay for all of your college, but the real hook for me is that you get to see the world. Pick a place on the map that you want to explore. And as broad and wide and deep as small New York City is, and diverse with all of its cultures and acculturations, I still felt that it was too small for me, and there was something else that I needed to experience. At the time, I didn't know what it was. I couldn't put my finger on what that thing was, but there was this inner knowing that wasn't really fully understood that said to me, you needed to be someplace else. And that was my calling. And I think sometimes, ever so often we get these different types of knocking or calling or that thing that's just pulling at your heartstrings. And that's what it was. That's what it was for me.
God speaks to us in some of the ways that we would never, ever imagine.
100%.
I love that. What I'm learning here is, so we spoke to Lindsay Livingston, who you also know. We spoke to her in a previous episode. So for anyone who hasn't seen that, go check it out. But, she was 37 when she was diagnosed. You were 39?
I was.
And I feel like a lot of times people talk about, when you're 40, get your mammogram and this and that. But I'm seeing more and more that a lot of these diagnoses are coming in earlier. Is there anything that you know of your experience of why that might be?
I think that there are a number of things that's relative to environmental factors. What we eat, what we drink, stress, oxidative stress, this kind of being on the treadmill of life type of work ethic at times and not having work-life alignment. The other part of it with Black women and probably brown women, which Matthew Knowles spoke about some years ago when he partnered with us for the Pink and Black Gala, is the connection between prostate cancer in men and their daughters later being diagnosed. And for the record, my dad passed away in 2007 from prostate cancer that was metastasized throughout his body to lung cancer. Now, he had other factors that would take a longer discussion, but at the time and even today, there was no one in my family who had been diagnosed with any type of cancer that I had known about.
So when your father passed, was that around the same time you were diagnosed?
No, so it was almost about 10 months after my dad passed away. He passed away in February of 2007. I was diagnosed early May 2008.
I watched my grandmother go through her breast cancer treatments, and I know at that time she was in her mid-80s, so I know it was very hard on her body. But also, she was retired. She didn't have to do a lot of other things. She can kind of just go home and rest. But I'm sure if you were late 30s, early 40s, that life still goes on. So what was it like balancing that?
This is going to sound weird. I think that my physical abilities and the fact that I was always grounded in doing some level of physical activity almost on a daily basis enabled me to feel strong enough even when my body was being weakened a little bit by either chemo or radiation, to the point where I only took a couple of weeks off from work. I went back to work. 2 months later, I was back in school, going through my doctoral program. And that was healing for me as well. So I'm so grateful. I have to say that it's definitely not of my own doing. That is God's goodwill on my life that allowed me to just get back into doing boot camp, running 5Ks, even as I was gaining weight from all of the drugs that they'd been pumping in my body to make me feel better. I still enjoyed physical activity and enjoyed being able to work and do the things that I believe God created me to do at that moment in time. Show up to track meets with my daughter. I do the best that I can to do homework, sitting in the stands when she was playing basketball and, cheering her on or showing up for friends. And so I'm grateful that I was able to, from a physical perspective. Mentally, there are moments where things were like, you question yourself and all of that. But for the most part, I remained balanced. Yeah.
When you were talking about how there was something that was calling you to the Army, I think that's what it was. God was like, hold on, we dropped one of our cyborgs.
Exactly. There are no accidents. There are no accidents at all. Not at all.
Man,
Yeah.
what a journey. And then, 17 years ago, I'm assuming you rang the bell. What was the moment where it's like, all right, this is over? What was that like for you?
So curveball, I ring the bell, and okay, there's a moment of jubilation, and it's like, woo, chemo radiation is done. And then you go home and you go through the weekend, and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday comes around, and that's when fear crept in for me.
Wow.
I wasn't being seen by a medical doctor anymore, not at the same cadence.
Yeah.
And so I had this moment of, what if something happens? I'm not being seen. I'm not seeing Dr. Cause. Nobody is really calling me. Now the cadence has moved from a couple of times a week to where I'm probably going every other month, or I think it was like every 3 months. It was scary there for a little bit, to be honest.
Wow. So it's like you had that comfort of having that community with your doctors. Wow. Interesting.
Oh my gosh, every week that I would go in and I'd have my Erykah Badu rap on, and Dr. Cos was like, hey queen, the numbers are looking good. All right, we're gonna do this dosage, blah, 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 blah. And I would sit there. I was working at Dell Technologies at the time, doing my conference calls and all of the other thing. And then all of a sudden, it's not there. It was frightening, but I had to yield not onto my own understanding, but to my the God, the one who knows me better than anybody else and knows me better than myself, and really pray it out and get to center to really acknowledge what I know to be true, and that cancer had no stronghold on me, period.
Amen. Yeah. I love that. And it's interesting that you mentioned that you were going through your doctorate program at the same time, because literally one of my homegirls who I grew up with, we went to middle school, high school together. She just got her doctorate from Harvard. And while she was going through that, she also got a diagnosis. So I'm going to make sure she watches this episode. But for someone like her, being fresh out of it. I mean, she literally just graduated. She's rocking her cute shortcut now. But for someone like you who's been 17 years out of it, what's some advice that you could give her, or some things that you've learned along these last 17 years for her to maybe look forward to?
I still go back to one of the first things that I had to say to myself, and that what my mom had taught me a long time ago, and that's when you are in this place of noisiness in your head or unease for whatever reason, be still and know that I am God. I say it to myself all the time. That's number one. The second thing is give yourself grace. Remember that everyone's journey is vastly different, and yours may not take on the same tone, tenor, and pathway as somebody else. But in doing that, one must always acknowledge, I tell people all the time, each and every one of us, we are 1 in 8 billion. I want her to know, as you're watching this, there is none like you. You are 1 in 8 billion, and God has created you wonderfully and beautifully made. This too shall pass. Sometimes you just got to take a breath, one breath at a time, one day at a time. And know that God will never leave you, nor will he forsake you.
Amen. Ooh, I want to end on that, but we still have more time and a lot more to talk about. So, ooh, that was good. So let's talk about sipping positivity. And I have my tea, so I can sip
All right.
my little Our Power Media positivity. But yes,
I should be sipping the tea, but I am sipping water nonetheless, which is so very important. I'm behind today on my water, but it's always about sipping the stuff that's good. So let's get into the tea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. So what made you decide to start Sipping Positivity?
My doctoral work was done about sisterhood and relationships that women share in the workplace, common threads and common themes that really bring women together. And as an offshoot of my work and some of the quantitative and qualitative net outcomes of the research, I did my first book, which is called Corporate Sisterhood, the ultimate power prescription for every working woman. So for me, the sisterhood at Dell Technologies at the time embraced me in such a way. And, once we got over breast cancer and all of that, when Ange would call and Ange would say, "Hey girl, I got some tea for you. Let me tell you this tea." And so somebody else will call and somebody will say, "Ooh, girl, do I have some hot tea?" Da, 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 da. So I, on the other hand, I love a good tea. Whether it's hot tea, a juicy tea, or a gossipy tea, bring the tea to me. Inoculated in that, I'm always focused on making sure that it's positive. So because I love to write, I thought about it. You know what? If you're gonna sip the tea and take the tea, keep it positive and sip positivity and do it responsibly. So I kept playing with it. So it's a play on word, but it's also the way in which I really, without being perfect in any way, shape, or form, the way in which I live my life. I believe at the core that positivity is a verb that requires action. And so in bringing Sipping Positivity to life, Sipping Positivity is all about ensuring that one has visual reminders or mental reminders that they can put into action of how they should live for themselves and how they should show up for the world. So it did not start off as a nonprofit. It started off as me thinking about a way to create a business, which was around mugs and different paraphernalia. Again, that pretty much was a visual indicator of how to live with different sayings and the like. But because of my philanthropic nature and the fact that I'm big on giving back, I mean, God didn't save my life just for any old reason.
Right.
He saved me to make a difference. And so I turned it over into a nonprofit because at the core of it all, I've been raising funds independently for over 20 years. I was doing Live Strong Foundation, a bunch of different 5Ks, working with Susan G. Komen and a number of different organizations to raise funds. So I thought, let me flip this thing into something that could be about legacy building. So Sipping Positivity today is a 501c3 nonprofit. It is my audacious goal and the goal of myself and board members to see a world without any type of cancer. And for our moonshot goals, we really focus on driving education and awareness, really helping with financial resources and raising meaningful funds every single year that we can leverage to help folks who are going through the fight, not just during the fight, but after the fight as well. So that's what Sipping Positivity is all about.
I love that, and you're such a great fundraiser. I went to the gala last year and it was such a great time. And one thing I love about you is that you know how to get to the ask. You know how to say, hey, here's what we need. And so one, I'm gonna let you do the ask, but then also I have a question about that. So for anyone else who is mission driven, who wants to also maybe start a business or a 501c3 or something along that line, but maybe they're still a little hesitant about getting to the ask, what is some advice you could give them on just saying, hey, this is how you actually get the resources you need?
Yeah, so first of all, whether it is a nonprofit or a profit business, I want people to be sure of their why. You've got to be clear on why you are doing what you're doing, and also be clear on your service offerings. What are the service offerings, right? Once you are clear on those things, at the fingertips of one's internet today, there's so much information out there that people can garner. Because I'm a Googler, I work at Google, I say that AI is also out there to assist, and AI will never take away the human-centric solutions that one can bring forward. But at the same time, it will take a little bit more time for me to go through all of the steps that people should be doing. But a 501c3 that is mission driven and that can drive legacy and it can hit to the heart of what one can do to make a difference needs to really solve for a gap within your community or whatever service area you live in. So once you understand your why, you are clear on what your service offerings are that you can give to the community, make sure that you have an area that it serves, right? Unfortunately, the reason that I will have to continue to raise funds is that my service area and the number of people who are being diagnosed continues to grow. So until such time that there's a world without breast and chest cancer, I may have to continue asking. Although if I win the lottery, man, I'm going to go so big with this thing, it won't even be funny. And then we will be having a totally different conversation. I will say, if there are others, if to get deeper into some of the nuts and bolts of how to get started, I always make myself available to have conversations. Yes, my schedule gets pretty booked up because I do work a full-time job, but on the side, I'd be happy to have a deeper conversation that can help someone get to where they need to be.
I love it. And for anyone who wants to have that deeper conversation, how can they find you?
You can find me by going to my website, JacqueColbert.com. I'm also most active on Instagram, so if you send me a DM, I do check DMs and I will get back to you in short order. But I do want to talk about my gala, because you've got to be bullish about the things that you're excited and passionate about. So if you would allow me the floor, I'd love to talk a little bit about the Pink and Black. All right.
The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. The Pink and Black Gala, I would say without any reservation, is one of the most glamorous galas that you can come to in H-Town. Let me tell you why. First of all, if you know me or you're getting to know me, you got to know that I like fashion. And so I combine all of the good F's for this gala. Now get your dirty mind out of the gutter. Let me tell you about the good F's. It's all about fashion. It's all about fun. It's all about great food. It is all about friends, my faith, and hello people, fundraising for the cure. That's what we're doing. And so in all of this, in all of the fun that we're going to have, I want people to understand that this is a serious cause. Mm-hmm. The numbers are not going away. In fact, from 2019 to 2023, the 5-year survival rate for women with breast cancer is now approximately 92%. That's good. It's largely due to improved early detection. And I want to stress the point about early detection and treatment saving lives. Now, the trend is showing mixed progress and urgency. So while survival is improving, the growing number of diagnoses still highlights the reason why, unfortunately, I have to do events like the one that I am doing. We do a lot to even showcase folks who are going through breast cancer today, because for some folks, how it plays on their psyche and their mental wellness. Our full focus is also to help elevate and lighten the burden of a very tough and challenging situation that they're enduring.
Indeed, indeed. And that brings me into the next segment. So as we close this out, there are two things that I always want to do at the end of every episode. And so one of those is we're building a power playlist. So for anyone that is feeling, a little down or whatever, what is a song or a podcast or an audiobook or something that helped you get through or is helping you get through nowadays?
I am big into music, which I use for my workout. And in my playlist, I have quite a few things. So I'm Guyanese, right? So there's got to be soca, reggae, and some Caribbean influences.
I also heard you rap, so I'm sure there's some rapping and some hip hop.
Exactly. I mean, hello. There's got to be rap in there. So there are a couple of songs. I love Bob Marley. Probably a few times during the week, I'm playing the song War. It's a little bit slower, but if you listen to the words of that song, it's still relevant for today. Because sometimes, so in context, there's broader war that's happening across the world, but sometimes we have internal war or societal wars. But for oneself, you can interpret or deconstruct meaning when you think about war. The other one that is in my playlist, it's called Phenomenal. It's a soca song, and for those moments where you feel like you might just be a little bit down, just know that you're phenomenal in your own right. And there's several others. I get grounded in gospel, goodness of God. And yes. I mean, I'm getting literal goosebumps with it. And then if we were to go deeper into dance hall, I mean, I have a whole playlist here. I give you a little Buju Banton, a little Bogle, There's a lot. Bears Hammond. We would be here all day long. I say,
I might need you to just send that to me.
I will share the playlist, but I would say to you, I want you to lean into whatever lights your heart's fire. Sometimes it could be a little bit of country or a little bit of rock and roll. It could be a little bit of LL Cool J, a little bit of Round the Way Girl. It could be a little bit of Bogling by Buju Banton. And then, when I'm cooling down and during my workout, I always go to gospel music. So whatever serves you and lights your heart fire, put it in your playlist.
I love that. I love that. And to close things out, I believe in speaking things into power. So is there anything that you would like to speak into power right now?
What I'm speaking into power is the audacity of hope. For anyone that is listening or looking at this segment, to speak and manifest the goodness of God over your life. That's one. The next thing that I'm speaking into power is that we are going to have an amazing Pink and Black Gala with a twist this year. Because when we do things, we don't do it halfway. And whatever the number of people that may be that ends up showing up, we're going to have a great time on purpose, for the purpose, with intention, for intention. Those are my power words for today.
And so it is. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. That was so great.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you so much again for having me. I deeply appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Jacque. And thank you all for pulling up a seat in the lounge. Until next time, stay powerful.
This is our house.